Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona with the March 20th edition of Horses to Watch. This week I'm going to be taking a look at three races that occurred last weekend at Aqueduct. The first two are maiden races that featured horses that probably should have broken their maidens on these days, and the last one's an allowance race that features two horses that both had difficult trips for different reasons. We're going to begin with the fourth race on Friday, which features the number 8 horse Alphadora, who was among the favorites in this race, and I felt that she obviously should have broken her maiden in this race, and just a series of circumstances contributed to her losing by about a head at the end of this race. We'll start by breaking from the gate, and Alphadora is the number 8 horse, and she breaks very sharply. It's worth noting that she was coming off 2 sprint races prior to this, and full disclosure, this is a filly that I've been interested in since she made her debut. She had a tough trip against a bias that day. I thought she ran much better in her second start when she closed to just miss against a tougher field. And in this race, she was stretching out to the mile for the first time. They also put blinkers on her for the first time, and you can see that she's a little bit more headstrong than she had been in her prior races under Hector Diaz moving down the backstretch. Now, the first quarter goes up in 23-1, which is pretty fast for this group. They go to the half in 47. These are legitimate, honest fractions, and she's doing it quite easily. And I thought Hector Diaz was just not quite as willing as you might have liked to see to secure the early lead. He seemed to just be reining her in to try to prevent her from going too fast on the front end. And you do want to be wary of that with a horse wearing blinkers for the first time. They do have a tendency to run off. And right here, I thought that he just lets her go a little bit too soon because she's obviously willing to show more speed than he would like. And she just opens up a 3-4 length lead around the far turn. You saw she crossed over to the rail there and just kind of unnecessarily cut off the number 1 horse who had to steady and ends up rallying again to be third in this race. That's just not something that you ever want to see happen. Coming to the quarter pole, she's got a 5-length lead on this field, and she looks like she's home, but she's just gone a little bit too soon. She just used that speed that she was willing to show on the far turn that she should have been saving for the stretch. And right here, it looks like she's got the race wrapped up even at the 8th pole, and Hector Diaz just kind of eases up on her a little bit. I think even he thinks that he's got this race won. He's not looking to his inside, and I don't think he saw that number 3 horse Today Comes Once, the eventual winner, coming up the inside. And right here, he goes back to a strong hand ride, but it's just too late. You can't pick up momentum at that point. It's just a situation where this horse, she ran the best race. If you're looking at the Timeform US speed figures that give horses extra credit for setting faster paces, she earned a 94 Timeform US speed figure, which is actually quite high for this level, whereas the winner just got a 90, 4 points lower because she took advantage of that faster pace. Alphadora is a horse that I think will break her maiden next time out as long as she gets a more patient ride. I don't think she really has any problem with the mile distance. She just needs to be ridden to preserve that speed until the stretch next time out. We're going to look at a horse that got a very different trip in a maiden race on Sunday, which is the 4th race, and it's Spice Road, the number 6 horse. He's a Godolphin homebred. He's actually a full brother to Avery Island, who won the Withers and the Nashua for these same connections a couple of years ago. This is a 3-year-old debuting against some older horses, and I think it's worth watching this race right from the start because he doesn't get off that well. He's the number 6 horse, and he's just going to break about a length slowly, and from there you'll see he just is a little bit reluctant to settle. There's a ton of kickback happening ahead of him, and as they break, you see he's about a length behind the field. He's the number 6 in the blue silks there, and he's just going to start to carry his head a little bit high. You see he's got kind of that high action. He's not really climbing in the traditional sense, but you see he's carrying his head a little bit too high, and just all the kickback that's happening ahead of him, he doesn't seem like he's really able to settle behind these horses. This race was going the 7 furlongs, and to me, this is a horse that is going to want to stretch out in the future because even though they're not going that fast up front, he's just not really able to keep up in the early going. Dylan Davis, who's on him this day, just has to kind of keep after him throughout the race to really keep him interested in the race. You'll see right here as they start to break for the far turn, he gets closer to the horses ahead of him, and he just seems to react badly to getting that kickback in his face. He's just kind of jumping up and down. His head starts to go up again right here. He's just not really comfortable, and Davis is going to let him just kind of settle around the far turn, and he's not going to ask him for his best until they really get into the stretch because this horse needs to kind of just calm down, and once they get to the outside and he gets into the clear, he's going to put in a pretty eye-catching finish in this race. This is not a race that featured a fast pace. As I said, they were going moderate fractions up front, and it was a race that was really dominated by horses that were towards the front throughout. The number 8 Stilts and the number 7 Manipulate, who were first and third in this race. They were both towards the front from the start, and you're going to see Spice Road make a really eye-catching run through the stretch here. He's really leveling off and striding out well at the finish. He ran the final quarter mile of this race in 23.78 seconds. If you've been following Aqueduct throughout the winter, you just don't see closing fractions like that. He even ran his final eighth of a mile in 11.80 seconds, according to Trackers. That's just remarkable for a first-time starter, especially over a track like this where it doesn't really produce fast closing time. So I think Spice Road is a horse that is going to improve subsequently. This race didn't earn a very high speed figure, but that doesn't really matter to me because he showed potential in this race, and he will get better with added distance in the future. The final race I want to take a look at is the 8th race from the same day that Spice Road ran on Sunday, and it's an allowance race for New York breds with an optional claiming tag of $40,000, going 6 furlongs. This race featured a heavy favorite of the number 5 horse, Ready to Escape. Now, Ready to Escape was coming off a win where he earned a 98 buyer in his prior start, and he really took a lot of money based on that speed figure. I'm not sure that's a speed figure that's really going to hold up in the future because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a number of the horses in the field. And not only did Ready to Escape regress this time, but he showed a bad tendency that has cropped up in his recent races where he's just broken slowly. He's broken behind the field. And if we watch the horses come out of the gate, you're going to see it happens again here. He's a horse that I think in 2 of his last 3 starts prior to this broke slowly, and he just comes out behind the field. He drops a good 2 lengths on the rest of the horses right out of the gate, especially on a short price favorite. That's just not what you want to see happen. And after that, Junior Alvarado realizes this is a horse that needs to be forwardly placed. He runs his best races when he's up close to the pace, if not on the lead outright. And he just gets way too headstrong under Junior, drags him up to be towards the front. This race featured a pace that was not exactly slow, but they weren't flying up front. 23, and I think they went 46 and change to the half. Those are moderate fractions for horses at this class level. And because the field is so bunched, the number 5, Ready to Escape, is forced to go 4 wide around the far turn. The other horse that you want to be aware of in this race is the number 9, Candid Desire, who's currently last. Like Ready to Escape, because the field is so bunched, he couldn't really settle towards the back of the pack on the inside. He had to go wide all the way around the far turn. Now, whereas Ready to Escape just kind of hangs in the stretch and can't really make up ground due to the fact that he overexerted himself on the backstretch, Candid Desire is going to put in a pretty notable late run in this race because this race was really dominated by horses towards the front end. The number 6, Morning Breeze, was on the rail. He won the race in wire-to-wire fashion. And Candid Desire is going to make a big run from last place to just miss. He finishes second in this race, falling just a head short of getting by the winner. I talked about the fast closing fraction that Spice Road ran in that maiden race. Well, Candid Desire ran even faster up his final quarter mile. He ran that final quarter in 23.72 seconds. That is just flying for a sprint race over the Aqueduct surface. This is a horse that was making his first start off the claim for Carlos Martin in this race. He had shown some back class in his prior races, had gone off form recently, but they put the blinkers back on first off the claim, and that really seemed to focus Candid Desire in the stretch run of this race. So he might be getting back into top form, and he's a horse that I would look for under similar conditions next time out because he might have really improved off the claim. As for Ready to Escape, I think he might be a trap moving forward. I know that he's a horse that had a tough trip in this race, and he ran better than his 4th place finish might indicate, but he might break slowly again next time. It's just a habit that he's shown recently. So I'd be careful with Ready to Escape at a short price and would prefer Candid Desire out of this race. So hopefully we can bet these horses back in the future and make a few scores. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week.